What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Formula One True North, the Canadian Formula One podcast. The three amigos are back this week. Myself is Drew. We got Thomas here. We got Ed here. And our boy Walker is still missing in action, but he will be back for next week's episode, so we're very excited for that.
It's lights out and away we go.
Let's get right into it. This week, we are going to be doing our mid-season recap. So I want to ask you boys, just give me a highlight. What's something about this season that was a pinnacle turning point for you guys in the season that made you really love it? Thomas, I know you were super excited about this. Before I hit the record button, you were on about it. It's over to you.
All right, so mine's not going to be per se a typical answer what you guys expect. It's more of a broader answer, but basically when Max started not winning first place, that was the highlight of my season. Just because, not that I hate on Max too much or anything, but the amount of different strategies, different plays that came into the race. It was nice to see different teams on the podium, different battles. That's what made me really pumped, really excited, and I felt reignited almost watching F1 because it was so unexpected and especially, the last 2 to 3 races, just mind blowing. I'm like, this is what F1's supposed to be, not winning ahead by 15 to 30 seconds. That was my highlight. I hope after the summer break, it continues. Obviously, I'm not saying Max should lose every race. If he has a win here or there, that's totally fine. But more races like this. And, as we all spoke, a lot of these teams, a lot of these cars are now catching up to Red Bull or have caught up to Red Bull, like McLaren. Ferrari's not too far behind. So I think the momentum is going to keep going and we'll see more and more progression from the other teams. And I think Red Bull's going to have a harder time maintaining, per se, that lead. And I think there's going to be a lot more fun and more entertaining battles happening.
We have, for the first time since 2021, we've had 4 teams winning races, which is nice because the last couple of years, well, it's been a little bit of a Red Bull runaway, and that hasn't been fantastic, especially for the new fans, right? So what do you think the power dynamic split is between Formula One and the different teams right now, Ed?
I mean, it kind of boils down to what every single pundit has been saying for the past few races, few weeks. No one knows who the next race winner is going to be. And it's now even across McLaren, Mercedes, Red Bull, and Ferrari. I mean, at that point now you're just looking at how are we going to see who is going to be the actual winners, maybe driver or maybe the constructors as well, because everyone is performing. At the start of the season, we had Red Bull, then Ferrari, and then McLaren, and then Mercedes. And who knows, maybe the mid pack and the bottom pack, they might start moving as well. I'm just looking forward to all the racing and how exciting the races are. And as Tomas said, it's no longer just 15, 20, 30 seconds of Max Verstappen in the lead. So it just it creates that other feeling of the race, and that's for me is the highlight of the season. It's now actual racing.
Yeah, man. And I think too that it's the depth of the competition that's happening now, right? So every driver from Red Bull, Mercedes, McLaren, or Ferrari has made it onto the podium this season. I'm going to ask you, Thomas, who do you think is the most surprising out of those teams and drivers to make it onto the podium this year?
Honestly, I'm going to say I think McLaren. I expected, great things from them. I did not expect things that we have seen. They are so powerful and so competitive, and I was honestly mind blown. I thought, Ferrari's going to be there, maybe Aston, but the way that team runs, the way they have their shit together, Zach Brown, Andrea Steller, the drivers, it seems like a well-oiled machine. Now, granted, obviously there was a couple mess ups, a couple poor strategy calls, whatever, it happens. but the way they performed, honestly, if you would have told me at the beginning of the season, McLaren is going to be on the podium, I would have said, maybe a one race or two races, sure. But the way they're performing, I would have said, bullshit. I don't believe you. But the way they're going, wow, that to me is the most surprising. Also to me, surprising in another turn is Ferrari and Aston Martin. I thought great things from them as well, and they're not performing as well as I thought. So that's another kind of double-sided coin. I hope they're gonna change their strategy a little bit, play different strategy calls or do upgrades or whatever they need to do. But I really am hoping to see them more on the podium as well.
Ed, I totally cut you off before. I totally forgot to ask you and let you finish of what the highlight of your season has been. I didn't get to talk about mine, so I just want to go back and make sure that you get to talk about yours. It's only fair.
No, and I appreciate that. I kind of alluded to it already. For me, it was the Miami Grand Prix when McLaren had their first win of the season and Lando's first win as well. He's no longer a second place winner. He's no longer just a podium winner. He is actually a race winner. So that for me was the first straw to, my God, like absolutely fantastic racing all the way till summer break. Like there hasn't been a dull moment since. And well, they did say last year, and I kept on saying this at the end of the year, like at the end of last year, last season, like would McLaren actually own up to what they said, that we are going to take the fight to Red Bull next year? And lo and behold, they did. They owned up to what they said, and everyone was doubting me at the start that, McLaren's going to be McLaren, whatever. And then Miami. And then the succeeding races. On and on and on. Yeah. So those were like the main highlights for me for the year, because it was a catalyst for absolutely fantastic racing. So looking forward for more.
I'm going to piggyback on what both you guys are saying, because like I think that what you brought up, Thomas, is like the fact that the Max domination started to fall, and even what you said, Ed, like the fact that we had a new race winner in Lando Norris, that was the first one, and like I think that started even earlier, right? Like when we were in Australia and we saw Max Verstappen's like tire brake catch on fire, and Carlos Sainz swoop in like moments after he was just in a surgical room getting his appendix out. That to me was like the beginning, like the precipice of like a great season. Because then we had, how many different race winners? 7 different race winners?
Yep.
We've got like 18 out of the 21 different drivers that have driven this year getting points. The depth in this field is absolutely unbelievable. Like we have had some of the closest racing in Formula One ever. And it's actually just nice to see. It's refreshing. And I'm sure you guys both agree that like at the beginning of the season, it was looking not so good. It looked like a Max runaway. And I think the breaking point was in Monaco when Charles Leclerc won the Monaco Grand Prix. Like that had to be like the star on everything, because what that showed is that there are some hiccups over at Red Bull. And when they have a car that isn't going over bumps and curbs very well, we saw a flaw in the design for the first time. Is that coincidental that Adrian Newey was also leaving at the same time? Once Adrian Newey announced his departure, I saw all of the greatness that Red Bull had demonstrated over the last few years just fall off with him too. And, I can't believe we forgot about this, but like think about how much controversy there was at the beginning of the year with Christian Horner getting all handsy at the Christmas party, sending some inappropriate text messages and stuff like that. And we forgot how much that was a huge shakeup on the season for Red Bull. Like Adrian Newey wanted nothing to do with it. Jos Verstappen was hoping that Christian Horner gets fired. People were saying that Jos was the guy who was leaking all of the, the G drive or whatever with all these text messages and all that stuff in it. It's been an epic season. Like it's been really good. We are 14 races deep or something like that. And it's absolutely fantastic. With all the race winners, Lewis finally breaking the curse. We had Charles Leclerc breaking the Monaco curse. We got Oscar Piastri catching a weird sideways win. We got Lando Norris finally catching a win. We got Mr. Appendix getting a win. and we got Max. It's unbelievable. This is fantastic. This is what we've been begging for too long. Too long. It hasn't been this good since we started the podcast. So I'm excited that we got something to talk about, which is fantastic. But moving on, we have a tight championship battle going into the last half of the season between Red Bull and McLaren. I would argue Ferrari's still up there, but they're not looking so hot. They scored some early points, early days. I think that Red Bull and McLaren have the trajectory to make this happen. I would say that if everything remains equal and things keep playing out the way they're supposed to be, or the way they have been playing out, McLaren will catch them. If Checo does not start driving that car the way it deserves to be driven, I think there's going to be a big, big problem. My question for you guys is, who do you think's got this in the bag? Do you think Max is going to let this one slip out?
I'm going to stick to my traditional answer. I think right now, it's a little bit still too early to tell. Red Bull is a little bit still ahead. What you, Drew, said, if Checo doesn't perform, 1,000% McLaren got this. There's just no arguing, nothing. Just because the way the McLaren boys are going, they're going hard. They're driving those cars. They're trying, and clearly from what we see results. We see that they're succeeding. The team is making the right moves. At Red Bull, it's a little bit right now of a sinking ship per se, and almost seems like Max is dragging the whole team behind him. He's trying to he's trying to perform what's given to him. And he's doing his best. And, whatever is up with Checo, internal, external factors, he's just not coming up to the bat and not hitting it. And that's scary. To be Checo in a Red Bull, for Red Bull, that is a scary, scary vision for them to see that, hey, we're ahead, but we actually don't have this yet. And if things continue the way they continue, yeah, Drew, I'm with you. McLaren is gonna kill it, and they're gonna. I strongly believe they're gonna take the constructors and the drivers at that point if they're performing the way they're performing.
From my point of view, I think, you know what? I'm gonna make a bold prediction right now.
We love it. I'm here for it.
All right. I'm going to say that McLaren is going to take constructors this year, and then I really do hope that the 2021 championship of Max Verstappen is going to turn around on him, and Lando Norris is going to win it in Yas Marina in Abu Dhabi. Saying that right now.
Full circle.
McLaren is going to take it to Red Bull, and they're going to win it all this year. I'm saying that right now. I'm not going to change that. I am fully McLaren this season. 10 races out.
All right. Ed's got it. You heard it here first. We got a McLaren W on the year. You want a last race, last corner, last lap. You want a Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton, but you want Max Verstappen to be Lewis, I guess, in this case. And you want Lando to come over and just kind of spank him a little bit, pull a little brake check.
We just need another, what do you call this? We just need another Michael Massey situation. And then,
no, Michael, no, this isn't right.
I tried to stir up the
Christian
pot.
Horner now. Christian Horner is going to be the one who's going to be screaming at whoever the director is going to be. The
Sounding
race
all
director.
proper as hell.
Yeah.
Yes, Michael, that's not it, is it? That was arguably the worst British accent I've ever done in my life. I apologize to all my British fans out there. Oh, Jesus. All right, well, let me ask you guys this then. I want to know, now that we're halfway through the season, I want from each of you, I want your halfway winning driver and your halfway losing driver. And pick drivers that are like in the conversation. I don't want to hear Logan Sargent in this shit. You know what I mean? That's a clear, obvious loser. And I would argue Checo too. Leave Checo alone. He's also a clear loser. All right. So those are your two. You're out on those. You can't use those as losers because we've made that point. Those guys are losers.
Definitely. I'll start with my winners.
One
Lewis
winner.
Hamilton.
You get one winner.
Lewis Hamilton.
That's it.
Lewis Hamilton. I mean, like, come on. Like, he finally got into the wins. I mean, asterisk on the one because of George Russell. I think George Russell, I believe that he won that race. But yeah, Lewis Hamilton is my biggest winner. And then loser for me would be Esteban Ocon. He was put through the ringer after the crap that he pulled in Monaco. And the team just losing all faith in him. And after Monaco, it was just like a downward spiral to wherever he's going.
Haas.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Haas,
We know
Haas
exactly
is
where he's
one-
going.
No, we know, but I don't even know if he's even gonna perform there. So that's why, like, again,
That's
asterisk.
pretty savage, Ed. I gotta say, that's pretty savage.
That is
No,
pretty
I mean,
savage.
come on, like, with what he's been doing for the past few years, like I've been doing a lot of research on him too. It's just like he's not a team player. He's a good driver. I'm not gonna give him that, but like this is a team sport too, regardless of whatever you look at it. Like it's racing, but yeah, it's just like there hasn't been any chances for him to move up. It's all been a trajectory going down so far, and just the likes of K-Mag, and what do you call this, Daniel Ricciardo. It's just like that's kind of like where I see it. Like Pierre Gasly, even if he was on a downward spiral, like they spent a lot of money. Like Alpine spent a lot of money to take that guy. So, but yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens in the next few races. But those are my winner. That's my winner and my loser.
So this is a good question as well. For winners, I'm gonna go with Mr. Carlos Sainz. When it was obvious he's not getting that Ferrari seat or that Ferrari extension, like the fire ignited in the guy, man. He did not give a fuck. He is performing like crazy. He is pushing the car, not saying he had like a phenomenal race or phenomenal results, but man, he's pushing it, and you could see the performance. It's like, you know what? You didn't give me a seat. Now look what I can do. You're gonna regret this, right? So to me, I freaking love the guy. I think he's my winner in that situation for sure. There's a bunch of other drivers out there, but to me personally, he's the one that sticks out, just because of the 0 F's given at this point in time.
You might as well just swear. You already said fuck before.
Try to keep it PG, but okay.
No, you're not. You did. That's okay. If you say it once, you might as well say it the whole episode.
And then biggest loser, probably Valtteri Bottas. And I like him as a person. I like him as a driver. He's just not performing. Joe going you too, but I'm specifically concentrating on Mr. Bottas. Team had major issues. For someone that performed so well at Mercedes and then didn't perform well at Alpha, and now at Kick6 Sauber, not even a single point. We're halfway through the season essentially. That's disappointing. I truly expected more passion, more fighting in him, and I don't see that. And I'm not saying it's 100% his fault. He's doing what he can with the equipment that he's given, but part of it also seems like he's just not really into it. He's just kind of chilling and enjoying his time, and which is kind of disappointing and sad to see. But I really want him to score at least that 1 point, so he's not essentially the only driver left pointless. But yeah, that's my loser.
All right, that's fair. And it sucks because Bottas is, one of my favorite guys on the grid. I just love his persona and how he comes across on the paddock and in social medias and stuff like that. And I think he's an awesome human with an unreal mullet and an even better calendar spread. Guy's on fire. And it's unfortunate that he's the only guy without a seat, because I think the reality is there are worse drivers that have better seats than him. And to be on a team like Stake Sauber that is eventually going to become Audi and has some potential to be a fantastic works team in the opposite trajectory, I think his decisions kind of landed him where he is now, unfortunately, in terms of his career. So that sucks, but I agree with you guys. So I guess for my winners and losers, let's go winners. I want to say Oscar Piastri. I think Oscar Piastri is an absolutely unreal driver. I appreciate his stoicism when he's on team radio. That guy is just chilling the whole time. He's so calm. He just like says it like it is. There's no whining. It's just, this is how it's going to be. He takes orders, he gives orders, and he's surgical about it. And I think he's going to be a great driver. And I think he's got a seat in a car that will allow him to be a great driver. And I think that pairing is fantastic. In terms of losers, I'm going to have to go with Pierre Gasly this year. I always kind of secretly love Pierre Gasly. I think I have a little bit of man crush on him. I don't know if it's because of that French accent, but there's something about him. And I think he's a great driver. I don't think he's ever had an opportunity to be in a seat that's shown promise during that time. Like, he's been in the Red Bull seat, but not when where Red Bull was where it needed to be. Right. And so he's had these kind of opportunities where he's just been pushed to the side at the wrong time. And I know Alpine's been an absolute travesty this year in terms of organizational and performance, and the car coming in overweight and underpowered, and it's just been an absolute disaster over at Alpine. And it's too bad, because I think it reflects obviously on Esteban, and I'm sure that they're kind of bubbling up and boiling over a little bit. Those guys have just been so frustrated with each other in terms of their ability to compete, and because they can't compete, they're taking it out on each other. Right. And so I don't know, it just kind of landed me. So I think Pierre Gasly is my big loser on the year, which is unfortunate. Moving on then, boys, let's continue. Let's talk about some strategy calls. We've had some great strategy calls this year, and we've had some losing strategy calls this year. I want to hear your highlight for the best strategy call and your worst strategy call in the year.
I can start on that one.
Hell yeah, let's get it.
Best strategy call for me, which I already mentioned earlier, was the tire whisperer George Russell. That, oh my God. That was just the stripping of the win from him because came underweight. I think it was like just a kilo, or was it a pound? I wasn't. I'm not
1.5
sure.
kilos.
1.5 kilos. Man, come on. the guy used as much as he could for what he had, and like the setup was perfect for him. He was still racing. He wasn't like sandbagging too. He wasn't like trying to hold back the car either. He was pushing as much as he could within the limits in order to keep those tires in check and be able to finish the race. And that for me was just like beautiful. Worst strategy for me would probably be the situation right now with McLaren. They've had so many instances this year where they should have won. Like I'm sure you guys would agree with me. Like there were how many races were in like what was that race? I think that was Canada, I believe, that Lando Norris should have pitted out before the safety car, and they didn't call him out, and Max Verstappen was able to come through and get a tire change and get on fresh rubber, and then that lost the race for McLaren. That lost the race for Lando. And again, multiple instances, multiple races wherein they should have called either Lando or Piastri as well. Even with Piastri too, like should have called him in and stack them up. I think what race was that? Trying to remember. I think that was either Hungary or the Silverstone. But they were supposed to stack them, and then they split up the box, and that lost Piastri like what 20 seconds, and lost him
That
a
was
good
in
position as well
during the rain.
Yeah, so it's just like, come on, like it's definitely like the issue with McLaren right now is they're not consistent. They're not making the right decisions. I believe that the communication between the drivers and the race directors are doing really well, but they need to do more. They need to do better. if they want to really take it to Red Bull and the rest of the grid this year, that's what they need to do. And I believe that that's probably what they're even working on in the off season, like proper communication, looking at the data of the car, looking at the data of the other teams as well, and then making those right decisions post the summer break. So that's why I made that call earlier, that I believe that they will win everything for this year.
So yeah, I'm kind of with Ed on this one. The worst strategy call for me personally was the what happened with the McLaren boys, where Piastri essentially got more or less told, or Orlando essentially told to give back the place to Piastri for Piastri to take a win. That strategy was very, very poorly executed. We talked about this multiple times. It was a shame to see that, and that was just very, very poorly played on McLaren's part, and it was even, to me personally, sad to watch as a viewer. It could have been so much better. With the winner strategy, I'm gonna go again with that on this one, because what Mercedes did with George Russell, that's a freaking jackpot. That's a lottery to pull it off so many laps, and have the perfect strategy, when to pit, when to go. I mean, you see that. You almost never see that, as that's that tire whisperer essentially. We had Checo, a couple seasons ago where he performed really well with the tires, but this one, strategy calls was definitely for George.
All right, I'm gonna go for something completely different. I'm gonna say my number one strategy call was Haas in Canada with the wet tires, the full wets, and I saw Nico Hulkenberg and Kevin Magnussen carving through the entire grid like they were all driving toy cars, and these boys were in some F1 cars, and that was absolutely hilarious. It ended up backfiring immensely because everything dried up and those guys were stuck on full wet. But you got to give it up to the boys on Haas for taking a risk like that. That's fantastic. We don't talk about Haas a lot because really not that much to talk about. But I think that definitely checks off a box for me in terms of tire strategy, best strategy of the first half for sure. Worst, yeah, I'm gonna have to go with that Oscar Piastri debacle. And like they kind of stole his first win away from him, right? Like I understand that there was a strategic play there involved, but they didn't need to do that. Like they were trying to hedge their bets in terms of covering off Mercedes and Ferrari, but like I'm so sick and tired of McLaren playing defense. They got to play offense. They got to think like winners. And, we talked about this before, but they're thinking like a mid-pack team. And that's not where they are right now. They're a front runner. Look ahead. Don't look behind you guys anymore. And so I'm going to go with that one because I think, you put an asterisk beside Oscar Piastri's first win, and that kid doesn't deserve it because he's a fantastic driver. And I would argue he's deserved a few wins that have been taken away because of some bad strat calls by McLaren. But moving on, we have another segment that we want to talk about, the mailbox box. But that reminds me, if you are listening on YouTube or Spotify, do us a huge favor. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave us a comment, rate the show 5 stars only because the rest of it's just uncivilized. Just give us 5 stars. What are we talking about here? And I would really appreciate it if you guys would jump in the Discord. All the links will be in the show notes. The Discord's a lot of fun. We got our next segment coming up, which is the mailbox box, where we have people in the Discord that shoot us out some messages and we discuss it on the podcast, like I'm about to do right now. So we have our boy Derek just wants to know what the consensus is on Williams' future. Are they doomed to fight for points every race, or do we see them moving up the pack in the next couple years, especially now that they have the lineup that they have, and it's been the best one in and I quote, a long-ass time. So let me put that to you, Ed, because I know you're a big Williams fan, rocking all the Williams gear. Not today, unfortunately, but what do you think about Williams and James Val and what he has cooking over the next few years?
I actually see them leading the mid pack, maybe midway through 2025 into 2026 into the new regs. I mean, you have two fantastic drivers, and I don't know if we're even gonna talk about best move of the mid-season. Please, if anyone hasn't seen it yet, try to look for Alex Albon's 2-car overtake in Canada. If you haven't seen it, watch it because
One corner just before the chicane.
what exactly
I remember
one
that.
corner. He just oh my god, blows my mind. No one even saw that, and not a lot of people talk about it. But see that, and then see Carlos Sainz, and both of them, in a really good Williams car, even subpar, but with a better engine, like with how Mercedes is doing things now, they're gonna get some of that, if not a bunch of that next year and into 2026. And you have those two. Williams will make a comeback, and I have strong feeling that they will. And with James Vowles being the mini Toto Wolff that he is, and just like pulling the team together, yeah, next 2 years, definitely they're a team to be, they're a team to watch.
For the love of God, Ed, I hope your words are true and come true. Because at this point in time, I'm very, very curious and interested to see what Williams can do with these new drivers. Carlos Sainz is one hell of a driver. Do I see them competing for wins or, like you said, leading the mid pack? I don't see that yet. It's going to be first couple of races are going to be, I think, a good indicator. As of right now, I don't have high hopes for them. I don't want to have high hopes for them. I don't want to be disappointed. I want them to be great. I want them to compete for points. But as it stands right now, based on the previous races, I still think they're going to be fighting for points. Just of the data that we have right now and what's going on with right now. Obviously, with from next year, new drivers, new strategies and whatnot, could be a different play, but we won't know at least 2-3 races into the season. So I hope, for the love of God, Ed, your words come true, and they're gonna kill it.
Well, I'm going to give an opposing point on here, and I think that James Vowles getting in there is fantastic. I actually love the guy. I think he's a student of Toto Wolff and how the Mercedes regime kind of runs things, and I think it's fantastic. He's an absolutely awesome human being, and if he can get the trust of not only Alex Albon but Carlos Sainz, two great drivers, to jump into a car and see his vision and believe what he has going forward on that team, I think there's something there. But what I think happened to their car is they went from a car that was really quick in the straights, which means they were great on a few tracks, but terrible on the other ones, to now just a less than mediocre all-around car. So now they're not consistently losing, but they don't have that spread. Because when you have the extremes, at least you had decent points and good showings on those tracks that fit your car. Now they're just kind of floating in that middle ground. And I think they need to either, okay, here's an example. Take a look at Red Bull, right? They're not great at going over curbs, but they kill it in other tracks. And so they've taken an extreme stance on that and ran with it. And I think that Williams, being a buyer team, buying parts, buying engines, they need to pick an extreme and head in that direction and just run with it. Because I think this overall car thing is not working for them, because now they're struggling to score points now that Alpine's back in the mix, now that Haas is in the mix, right? And Stakes Sauber is there's only saving grace right now. Otherwise, they would just be doing awful. Absolutely awful. So, Derek, thank you for that question. I hope that it answers it. It was a great talking point because I'm a big fan of Williams. They're kind of that underdog old school team that used to kill it, that just kind of had a rough go over the last few years. And you always kind of root for them a little bit. I don't feel the same way about Stakes Sauber. I don't have that same vibe. When Alpine loses, I don't feel bad for them. I do with Williams. You kind of want them to, because they've just been that bad, that you guys kind of want them to win. So what do you guys think about Max Verstappen? I want to ask you guys about, now that we're halfway through the season, his winning ways are over in terms of that radical domination that he's had over the last few years. What do you think's going on in the Verstappen camp in terms of his headspace? Is he shook a little bit? Is he worried about his driver's championship being, in jeopardy now that two McLarens are fighting and he's got his wanker little brother, Checo Perez, kind of just absolutely dogging it every single race? Do you think Max Verstappen's in the headspace to be taking on the McLaren team 2x2?
with everything that's been going on at Red Bull and them not winning, or them not performing well, poor strategy calls, poor races, it's messing with his head. You could even, hear on the team radio the way he talks, the way he speaks sometimes when things aren't going his way. It's like, this is the old Max. I was, there's points where I start to like the guy, the way, he speaks and he communicates. And this is, again, just bitching and complaining. Things are not working, bad strategy call, blah, blah, blah. I think he's concerned where the team is going with what happened with Christian Horner, that with what's happening with Checo, what's happening with Yaz. There's probably a lot of pressure in that sense. Obviously now Adrian Newey is going bye-bye. It seems like the cookie is so-called crumbling, and it's messing with his headspace. And I think his head is not fully in the race. There's so much external factors right now that he can't put himself fully in the race and perform because there's so much change. So he's not in the right headspace. I don't know if he will ever get back into that right headspace, just because McLaren is catching up fast. They're right behind him. He can see them in the rearview mirror essentially, and Checo not performing, that's that extra pressure as well. So to get back in your, like I said, to get back into your headspace with everything that's going around, very hard thing to do. And I don't think he's going to get to that. I think we're going to continue seeing old Max return with bitching and complaining and things not going his way. That's my opinion of what's going to happen, unless again a major shift happens in the team. It's going to continue going downhill from here. Ed, what you got?
Well, there's major issues that started this year with the team, and major talent that they've lost. And right now, it's not just the car; it's everything. And I'm worried that if things don't shape up in the Red Bull camp, and I'm talking about the car, the engineering team, this race strategy team, that we might even see Max leaving Red Bull in the foreseeable future. I mean, I've been saying that open seat in Mercedes right now looks still very inviting, even if everyone's saying that Kimi Antonelli is going to take that seat. And what if Kimi Antonelli doesn't perform? I see Max being there because Toto has like this massive hard-on for Max. Yeah, but like for the rest of the season, Max is pretty much just trying to hold on. He's the one that's carrying, like you said, Tomas, earlier, like he's carrying the entire team. Checo's not doing anything. He's not going to be defending for Max. He's always in the back. The car isn't set up right. They're experiencing porpoising depending on the track, and like the lowered ride height, higher ride height, stiffening the suspension. It's just like messing with him, and he said it several times on each of the races post Miami that McLaren is fast, and at some points McLaren is faster than us. He said that so many times, and it's just like that to me is just telling me that it's done. Like they're not as competitive as before, and Max being him, like he's gonna complain. But you know what? I have a feeling that we're seeing the last few years of Max Verstappen running with Red Bull, and who knows what the future will bring.
Yeah, I think you guys bring up some great points, and you know what you said too, Thomas. Like, there's a lot of external factors that are going on. Like, I think Max's ability to drive a car has not changed. I think he's still a fantastic driver. Do I think that Adrian Newey and Jonathan Wheatley, that's now gone, their sporting director, I believe there is the dominoes falling, right? Like that, once that snowball starts rolling and it starts to get big enough, you can't stop it. And eventually Max, I'm likely with the help of Yas, is just going to get pushed out of that team, right? Because he wants to be where the winners win. And I think that the dominoes are starting to fall in terms of Red Bull losing that that complete and utter domination that they've had over the last little. We've seen it already, right? And Jonathan Wheatley was a huge part of helping Red Bull get some of those wins that might have been a little bit dodgy, right? Like that guy knows that rule book inside and out. Like he's the guy that would go to the FIA when they got a penalty saying like, oh, Max crossed the line. And it's like, well, let's look at the rules. And then he's like, well, it says we were on the line, but what's your definition of crossing a line, right? Like he's that guy that like really lawyered into them. And, you know, Lewis Hamilton got the same penalty, and like Mercedes just didn't have the Jonathan Wheatley in their back pocket to pull out a move like that, right? And so losing key guys like that, and Adrian Newey, who's more key of a guy than Adrian Newey? That guy's like the pinnacle of motorsport in terms of design and engineering, especially as an aerodynamicist. The guy's an absolute legend in every sense of the word. And so when you start seeing that kind of stuff, you know, Max is beginning to look frustrated on the outside, and you can only imagine the internal stuff that's going on inside Red Bull that we don't even know about, right? Like just that awkwardness. And like, I don't know about you guys, but when I go into work and shit's tense, I'm not getting my best work done. You know, when like one person's angry at the other person and they're passive aggressive because of this and this, I can promise you nobody in that joint is performing at their best. And now that Max is starting to lose, there's more pressure put on them and more pressure put on them. And it's literally a pressure cooker. And it's going to blow at one point. And back to your point, Ed, like I think that there's an opportunity for Max to make a move. But I think that he's patient enough, he's smart enough and patient enough to know that 2025 is not the move. 2026 is the move after he sees what these new regs do and who finds that golden ticket fastest in terms of a team finding, you know, what they need to do in order to run with those new regs. Boys, that's it. Another episode, Formula One True North. Anything else you guys want to say before we sign off?
I want to give a shout out to this new sim league that I joined, and they're called Addicted Racing League on Gran Turismo 7. So you can find them on Discord. You can find them on Instagram. We have races Mondays and Thursdays, and even some open tracking as well. You'll see me there. My handle would be edlow106. And if you guys want to race with me too on Gran Turismo 7, just hit me up on PSN, PlayStation Network. But yeah, looking forward to having these guys subscribe to our podcast, because I told them that we have a Formula One True North podcast, and hope to hear from them as well, and maybe join our Discord too.
Hell yeah, boys. Yeah, we'll put the link in the show notes too. What was it? You said Addicted Racing League?
Yep.
Let's go. Let's go. Big shout out to the boys over at the Addicted Racing League. Okay, boys, it's been another episode. Do it.
Definitely, man. I'm looking forward. A few more weeks.
That's
a few more weeks.
Yeah, we're almost back, baby. We're almost back.
Yeah, we're almost back. And you know what? I'm so excited for what the teams have in store post the break, because I'm sure they're working super hard right now and just to find out
they're all
what
cooking.
they can do. Oh, yeah. I'm looking forward to my McLaren boys really taking it.
All right. Thanks for listening, guys. This is Formula One True North, the Canadian Formula One podcast, signing off.
It's lights out and away we go.